This is my 1987 Mark I Renault Espace, and yes, I am sitting backwards because that's just one of its many superpowers. What it also has is a fairly rusty pair of headlights. So in this video I'm going to repair the hole in the glass that caused all this rust, and I'm going to try various fixes until I found out what's the best way to get a fast fix for headlamps up to safe driving and MOT standard. This car is way too rare to have replacement headlamps available off the shelf, so the correct thing to do would be to take the reflectors out and send them off somewhere to be re-chromed. But that'll cost a lot of money and take a lot of time, which I don't have because the MOT test is the day after tomorrow. So I better get on with it. Some while ago I thought that the Espace had been crying quietly to itself on the driveway, but it turned out that actually it just had a hole in the headlamp and it had turned into a fish tank full of water. This is not helping with the rust situation, so whichever way I go I'm going to have to fix that hole, but I'll get to that later. The first thing to do is to separate the glass lens from the body of the headlight. So there's a kind of seal here, so if I put this universal micro pry bar in, commonly known as a screwdriver, and then just prise that apart and run the blade down, I can cut the sealant. I should explain that this is one of a pair of spare headlights that came with the Espace. They're pretty rare, these headlights. They were shared with the Mark I Renault Traffic van, but those aren't really any more plentiful on the roads or in scrapyards than Mark I Espaces. Oh, it's coming nicely now. It's not terribly well attached. There we go. The problem is that the spares that I've got are just as rusty as the ones that are fitted to the car. But it does mean that I've got something that I can do experimentation on. The bulb there bounces the light around the headlamp bulb, and you can see if I pull back, it's shining brightly off the sides, but it's just dark around the top and the bottom where it's rusted. So that's not doing any bouncing. So these headlights are much dimmer than they should be. The first bodge I'm going to attempt is chrome paint. This will be fantastically convenient if it works, but I've got really low expectations of it. You know you're a YouTuber when you try things out in reverse order of how likely you think they are to work, but I'm going to give it a go anyway in the interests of science and entertainment and likes and subscribes. I've got to give it a fighting chance though, and that means giving the reflector a good clean up so that there's at least some prospect that it might be smooth and reflective and shiny. A bit of contact cleaner, get the residue off. That's better already. The outer bezel hasn't rusted because it's plastic, so that's still nice and shiny. So I'll mask that up so I don't get any chrome paint on it. Just in case the chrome paint isn't quite as shiny as the factory finish. I know it's a bit rough, but it'll do, right? And I've got some acrylic chrome paint, which doesn't seem to need primer, which is good, so we'll give that a go. Well, we'll let that dry. First thoughts are, it appears to have attracted a magical amount of dirt that didn't seem to be there before, but clearly is now. So that's not ideal. It's kind of shiny. It's not quite how I want it yet though. We'll let it dry and we'll give it a bit of a polish and another coat and see what that does for it. Look, I don't think it's any worse. I've kind of wiped that off. I wasn't happy with the amount of dirt that was in, so we'll give it another go. It's like it brings its own dirt with it. It's very weird. It brings its own particulates. Maybe I'm not shaking it enough. Okay, 10 minutes have passed and I've done a load more shaking, so it's recoat time. I'll go on a little bit thicker this time. I think honestly, unless this dries with a very different finish from what it's got out of the can, then it's basically silver paint, silver gloss. Yeah, that's not chrome, that's silver. It's all right. It might do. It's reacted a bit here. That's not ideal. It's probably better than it was. It's not ideal though. Aluminium kitchen foil is not fun to work with, not if you want to keep it smooth anyway. It's not too bad on the flat part at the bottom of the headlamp here, but as soon as you have to deal with a curve, it's just a nightmare. It crinkles immediately and is just, no. There's also the potential issue of galvanic corrosion of the steel where you've got dissimilar metals in contact with each other. A tarnished headlamp reflector is bad enough, but it's better than one that's full of holes or disintegrated completely. Mylar sheet is shiny like chrome, but it's backed with plastic, so it's much easier to handle than baking foil. It's slightly easier to handle than baking foil. Ideally, I would be sticking this on with high temperature contact adhesive. I know I have some because I used it to stick the headlining on in my Jaguar XJS a few years ago. But my tin of high temperature contact adhesive has gone into hiding somewhere in my shed. So for the purposes of getting through an MOT the day after tomorrow, I'm going to give it a go with some spray mount. There are 3 problems with this. One is that the Mylar isn't really interested in moulding itself to the curve of the back of the reflector. It's alright on the top and bottom flat part, but not on the curvy bit. The second is that spray mount is really not the right tool for this job, and it doesn't stick well enough, and the Mylar is very curly. And thirdly, the more I read about Mylar, although it's easy to handle, it tends to break down under heat and UV light, which are the 2 defining characteristics of the environment inside a headlamp. So it seemed like a good idea at first, but I don't think Mylar is the answer. This is the officially certified Grand Thrift Auto Proper Bodge, and it's aluminium heatproof tape. The really good stuff is from 3M and costs a fortune, but I got this stuff from Halfords for about £6 a roll, and I think that'll do, at least for this job. You can use aluminium heatproof tape for temporary fix to exhaust pipes and things like that, and it's pretty durable stuff, especially the 3M flavour. My friend Lee recommended this stuff to me, because after several years it's still integral to the breathing system of his fantastic air-cooled splitty VW van. You do sometimes see people using this tape for bodywork repairs, if that's the right word, taping over holes in the bottom of doors and things, but I really don't recommend it for that. But I'm trying it for this, because this isn't structural, it just needs to be shiny and well stuck down. My tip for applying the stuff is to start from the middle and work outwards, otherwise you are liable to end up with a lot of creases that you don't really want. You don't really need to worry about making relief cuts though, because you can smooth out the creasing with your finger or thumbnail, so that it doesn't make too much difference to the reflective properties and isn't really noticeable once you've put the lens back on the front of the light. Unlike with the aluminium foil, I'm not worried about galvanic corrosion here, because there's a proper barrier layer of the adhesive side of the tape between the aluminium and the steel reflector. It's not perfect, but it's an awful lot better than it was. There's a lump knocked out and a hole. See the hole? This clear Gorilla Tape is not the fix. This just gets us to the fix. Stick that on the outside to cover the hole. This is the fix, hopefully. Crystal clear epoxy glue. Well, you can see that. Not very well, but that's kind of the point. If you do get any finger marks on it that need cleaning off, the solvent I found most effective is this, the Bulldog BDX penetrating fluid. Also cleans and protects. Spray that on and give it a good rub with a microfiber cloth. You'll obviously want to remove the finger marks and residue as quickly as possible, but as long as you do it before the epoxy goes properly hard, you should end up with nice clean glass. And once you do, the next job is just to stick the lenses back on the headlamps. I did this using Tiger Seal, which is both an adhesive and a sealant. And I'm assured that no actual tigers are harmed in its production, or seals for that matter. I'll put my hand up here and admit that this is a bodge. The correct fix is to take the headlamps apart and send the steel reflectors off somewhere to be re-chromed properly. But that would take time and cost money that I don't have, because this channel is about real-world classic cars, and in my real world, everything is a long way down a very long to-do list until the point where it's teetering on the brink of extremely overdue. So while this is a bodge, I think it's going to be a pretty durable one. It looks good, the lights are nice and shiny, and now all we need is the verdict of the MOT person. So, did it successfully go from this to an MOT pass? Yes, of course it did. Had a couple of advisories for corrosion on the brake pipes, which I'll need to give some attention to before too much longer. But other than that, it's all ready to go and roadworthy and running nicely, all ready for me to enjoy the South Wales summer. See you next time.